Welcome back to More Than a Lumpy Jumper. While Bridge and I take a little breather from a full season of leadership episodes, we're bringing you another in our Guest Gifts series, where we sometimes hand over the mic to our brilliant guests. These minis are all about hearing what's landed with them, their favourite episodes, how those moments have supported their own leadership learning, and what they'd love to hear more of. This week, I'm joined by the wonderful Mandy McDowall, a head teacher of not one but two primary schools. I'm not going to say any more than that, because Mandy can explain in her own words how she ended up being roped in, vehemently volunteered for this little guest episode. So here she is. Let's see where the conversation takes us. Mandy.
Lovely. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to More Than a Lumpy Jumper. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. And yes, I'm not quite sure how I did get roped in or how I volunteered for this. I think it's my inability to say no might have something to do with it.
Well, that could well be one of the episodes we actually talk about, but who knows? First and foremost, I'm going to ask you to say a little bit about who you are. And I did the naughty thing of actually introducing you with a job title of head teacher. What we ask our guests to do is to actually introduce themselves with not using a job title. So who are you really?
Okay, I am a mother of two fantastic boys. I'm very fortunate. I must have done something very right bringing them up. I also have a husband who isn't too bad either. He looks after me very well. I'm originally from South Africa, hence the accent. And of course, I bring with that a lot of my South African traits. I don't think we'll talk more about that. I am a leader, as you said, but I see myself not just as a leader of schools, but also as somebody who is really passionate about developing others and leading others. Most recently, I would say I'm a recovering fixer. For years, I thought my role was to solve problems, but I'm starting to work on that challenge and getting much better at it. And I know, and you know, that you've been helping me with that a lot too. So thank you for that, Bobby. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really.
I absolutely love the title, Recovering Fixer. It's just like, I could see, it's sort of like, well, of course, there's Alcoholics Anonymous and everything else besides. I'm just trying to work out what, my head's gone into a spin about what would the club be called for recovering fixers, but we'll come to that maybe. Oh my God. But yes, I think that's a brilliant title. So thank you. What made you start listening to More Than a Lumpy Jumper in the first place? As if I didn't know.
In the spirit of true transparency, I have the fortune of having you as my chair of governors. And we were talking about leadership one day and you told me that you were doing this podcast and I should listen to it. And I think I might have been hooked from the very first episode.
Oh, fabulous. So people get more of a gist of what you're really like is that I will never forget only 2 meetings in when there was a requirement for a vice chair for the committee and you were forcing somebody else sat next to me to try and pull my hand up into the air like I was volunteering. And before I knew it, I was the vice chair and now here I am as the chair. So I do hold you hugely responsible for that, although I do love working with you, so there's not a bad side to it really.
No.
You talked about South African traits. Yeah, mischief is one of them, which I think is why there's a meeting of minds. So I am glad that I retaliated with forcing you into listening to the podcast, but you're rather liking it. So say a little bit about, because if you're hooked, what keeps you here? What keeps you still listening to it?
A lot of the stuff that you talk about, it does resonate with me, and some of the research that you do, I can then go back and look at that. But one of the things I would say that really keeps me hooked and engaged is probably the relationship between you and Bridget. You can see that there is a true connection there, and It's like the yin and yang, I think. But the humour that you bring, I regularly listen to the podcast on my way to work and I chuckle to myself a lot. So I always walk away from listening with something to think about, and more often than not, a smile on my face.
Oh, I'm glad about that. Yes, it does get pretty nutty between Bridget and I, but yes, that's years in the making, but ever has it been thus. So I'm glad that that's actually coming across in the recordings. That's really cool. So, because you've been listening to a lot, was it like trying to choose your favourite child in terms of coming up with your favourite episode?
Yes, I think it was. I mean, I still had to go through some of them, but the one that really stood out to me, maybe because it's quite a recent one, and being of a certain age, I tend to forget things. But the leadership versus management one really resonated with me, and my situation at work and how we work as leaders and managers within our schools consistently.
And of course, I think that was the moment when you next saw me, when you said, "Did you record that just for me?" If that was the case, Mandy, if you wanted that to be the case, absolutely. So without incriminating yourself in any way, is there anything you can say, because you're a very new type of human for us to be talking to, because of course you're not ex-military, which is what we usually veer towards quite a lot of the time, or someone in HR, in terms of our backgrounds, but here you are as a head teacher in education, which is a new territory for me, to be honest, but with leaders and managers in it. And I'm wondering what it was that piqued the interest most in terms of how leadership looks in schools as a sector that I'm new to and educating myself in, no pun intended, but that distinction between leadership and management.
And I think that's why this episode particularly resonated, because in schools we have leaders, and we have leaders at all levels. But one of the things that came out in the episode, I think it was either you or Bridget that said it, I can't remember, said something about often managers are given titles of leaders, but what we're expecting them to do is to manage, and then there's a confusion there. So we do that a lot in schools, where we do want to elevate everybody to leaders, and you do need leaders at every level. However, there are times when you just need managers. And so schools need to also be looking beyond just our own school systems to get that experience, I suppose, and that expertise of leadership and management outside of our little micro ecosystem.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think what just suddenly strikes me is that, as teachers of our children, I use the term "our," from a community perspective, but it's the teachers of children. There's that role modelling of leadership, probably, in terms of leading your classes, which is perhaps a different definition, but it's the decision making, the responsibility, the nurturing, the development, all the things that we talk about in terms of being leaders in organisations. Every single teacher is expected to do that for the children they are teaching. And I'm just wondering, it's just struck me that, when that's the guise that they need to be in, is it the management bit that they find more of a struggle, which is the sort of, dare I say it, the adulting, a different form of adulting, getting the budget sorted, taking responsibility for delivery on X. Do you see where I'm going with it? It's just like there's a very different style all of a sudden in the culture that you're actually in.
Yeah, and I never thought about it that way, because you're absolutely right. Leading is the thing we do. It's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
But yeah, do we really refine our skills as managers? Because we always think about, when we're developing our staff, in, and what leadership skills do we need to develop in them? But do we ever step back and think, what are the management skills that we need to develop for them and support them with?
Yeah, because that's the sort of, if you think, I'm trying to remember back to the episode we did as well, because the leading bit is always looking ahead. So if I think about, when we're talking about classes and what have you, you're always looking ahead to the end of the year and where you want the achievement level to be for your children. So that's the performance measure, right? If you actually align that to a business, that would be the performance measure that you want to have achieved. And so that it's that outward looking, here's the vision. So there's the vision for the school, and then there's a vision for every class and for every year to actually see them moving through the years. Now, if we then... So there's the leadership bit. So as we're rightly now deciding, oh God, that means that all teachers have to be leaders, because that's the traction that they're actually on. And then you've got this management bit, which is the operation, the getting through the process, the checking on the resource, the report writing, the keeping on track and reporting back how they're getting on, all of those things, which... I guess, and this is a mass generalisation, but having worked with you, is sometimes where the challenge is to get those bits, because it doesn't feel like the day job. Yeah. When in fact you can't get to the leadership bit or to the performance bit at the end if you haven't done that. So all of a sudden teachers have got to be both. They have got to be both.
Absolutely. And then we wonder why teachers feel that workload is so intense, because you're doing the day job, and the day job seems to be the leadership, but actually all the paperwork and everything else that goes alongside it, the bit where the teachers feel is where the workload is coming in, that's the management side. Yeah,
and not the bit that has them feel like they're aligning with the children.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bit of a
thought about
drop,
it like that. Never thought about it.
Nor had I. Just, can you imagine what our next governance meeting is going to be like now that we've come to that massive realisation? God. So, but from that or other episodes that you've actually listened to, what else have you been learning?
There's been quite a few. I think one of the things that I think we still joke about as well is schooling our face. That was
I'm so good at.
Yes, that was a really good episode, and we regularly, some of my leaders and I, laugh together about when we're schooling our face and not schooling our face, and some of the but at the end of the day it's about being professional, because we all have emotions, I suppose, and we do need to find other ways of releasing our frustrations, because as leaders our emotions can't be coming out in the way that might upset others.
It's interesting, we're looking at, in our next season, a bit of a spoiler alert for anyone listening to this, but one of the episodes we want to do is leading with emotions, and asking questions about, is it okay to cry in the workplace? Is it okay to get angry in the workplace? All of those elements. And I'm going to be so interested in the conversation and where Bridget and I take it, because I think there's something that's been looked up or isn't quite authentic if you can't. But it's a bit like you say, there's the level of professionalism. I mean, you don't want to go and have a meltdown in the classroom or something like that, or in front of the parents, but you've got to be able to find the people that it's okay to do that with. And that's in, whether it's in your schools or me in business or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it's thinking about whether it's okay to show, that vulnerability, but it's who do we show it with? Yeah, I guess that will be an interesting one. I'll keep my eyes out for that one.
But the schooling of face, there's times when I think for both of us it might have been better to try to wear a mask, but my mask melts quite often, I think. But I'm also, and I wonder where you're at with this, there's almost a case for me at my ripe age to be thinking, well, at least people, even if I'm not articulating it, might see what might be going on, and it's giving me a moment to decide how I'm going to articulate it, because they might have caught the look on my face to think, oh, hang on, there's something going on here. It's probably better to use words. Sometimes my face goes before my mouth starts, which I'm not sure is a good thing or a bad thing. But I don't know if the same happens for you.
I think we know, Bobby, it does. And again, one of the things, I'm blaming my South African heritage on that. So, but yes, I think it is something as a leader I've definitely had to work on in my reactions, and because I know, like, starting this episode, you said, it's not about the title and who I am, but unfortunately, in our organisations, you become that title and people see you as that title, and it's really hard. And that's one of the things I've learned through my leadership journey is, whilst I can separate myself from the title, it's not always easy for others. So my reactions are very important to them. So I think
absolutely, and I
been
think
a massive
I
learning.
know I can see that with the time that I've spent with you and in the schools, because and I guess if I hark back, I've told you, in our conversations that my mum was a head teacher, and I guess the same was the struggle for her, because you become it, because there is no getting away from who you are, because the children see it like that, for a start off.
Yeah.
And then the parents, and then the teachers. I guess that you want to try and get to is that there is a better alignment and more connection, and you can see that with the way that you lead with the teachers. But there has to be this persona for the parents and the children.
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
Absolutely. There's definitely, and I think you're absolutely right. It's about how you lead, that you can have those relationships with your team, but in other roles you have to shift between the persona of the head teacher or the leader, but you can still have professional and comfortable relationships with your team.
Yeah. And I think I've said this to you, and I'll say it here for the rest of the audience to actually hear, that I think that whilst you are the head teacher, in particularly with the children, I see Mandy. You do give of yourself in a particular way. It's clear how much you care and how much they are the centre, of everything that you are putting to do, and that's what you want in a head. But I see you coming through in that. That's not just the head teacher title.
No.
Whether you like it or not. So you might be thinking that you're just the job title there, but I see something entirely different.
No. I think what I mean is, sometimes when I walk into a classroom, I think I'm just walking into that classroom to go and say hi, but immediately it changes the dynamic of that classroom for the children, for the teacher, because I am not just anybody walking into the class. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how that...
No, I do.
And that took me quite a while, because I didn't realise that I couldn't separate that in their minds.
Yeah, I do totally understand that, because I think that that's probably something I've grappled with as well. It's a bit like, when you introduce me at a school assembly as a very important person, I'm like, who the hell is she talking about? Oh God. A chair of governors, I think of a chair of governors, and they're these very austere, sort of like very professional people, and then somehow I've been landed with this goddamn title and not really sure how I'm meant to be behaving. But yeah, I'm with you that there is the how you want to be Mandy or how you want to be Bobby, and you can't always do it completely fully because of how you are perceived by others, because of the level of authority or the place or the position that you actually hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that much more
That's a
articulately
pain.
than I did.
No, No, I didn't. But yeah, no, I see that. And it's irritating. I find that irritating because I just like to be wholly me wherever I want to be. Exactly. Which is why I shouldn't have this job. But let's not go there. Not whilst we're recording it.
You're doing a great job. You're not leaving me.
Not yet. So what else would you like to hear about? What topics haven't we tackled yet? Or are there any that you'd want us to re-explore? Or a real nuanced thing? You know, what do you think we could also be bringing to further seasons?
I think it's something we've talked about quite a bit, Bobby, and it's about having those boundaries to protect yourself whilst also being able to get the job done, but having those boundaries protect your well-being. And really, in this day and age when everything is so fast moving, how do we make sure that we're having those boundaries but not compromising our jobs either, or compromising our high standards? Does that make any sense to you?
No, it does. And I think that would be a great topic, because it is about the well-being, and it's this I'm going to use a big word now, but it's that dichotomy of the world is moving so fast, and yet the only way to stop it being so fast, if this is even a reality, is to take a beat, is to know that for your own well-being you need to take a breath, and that in doing that you will maintain standards, because I think that everyone thinks that a plate will drop or something terrible will happen. Now, the fact is that it may well be that, you know, a deadline gets missed or whatever it might be, but what's life-threatening? Because what's more life-threatening is if we don't put the boundaries in place to affect our well-being. Positively. So it is an interesting one about, and I talk to lots of companies about this, because it's this relentless cranking of the handle without a breath, without a beat, without sort of like stopping to reflect, and yet they don't feel that they can stop because something terrible will happen if they do, and trying to convince people that it won't be that terrible if they create more space for themselves is quite an undertaking. But yeah, great topic to have a look at. So it's added to the list, I promise you. I will let you know.
Lovely.
When it's done.
Thank you.
Are there any others that you can think of?
I suppose that was the big thing for me, and again, it again just comes around to that well-being, about that boundary setting, about being able to lead by, and being that leader that serves without, as I say, fixing or not having, or having boundaries that are crossed too regularly, because we end up serving too much.
Without serving self. So we might have to think also about there being a whole episode for recovering fixers. I love that. We could have you back on to talk about your journey of recovery.
Hopefully I will still be in recovery, and
I'm going to just add that in. Oh, and here's Mandy back again as a recovered fixer. Let's hear about her journey. Excellent. I can't wait for that one either. Brilliant. So there's a couple more little questions. So, okay, let's go with this question first. We turn this on its head and ask, and I don't know that I actually told you this one, so this might be sort of like off beam for you, but you know, here we're going to go and see what you think. What would your young self tell you?
Might tell me, or what would I tell my young self?
Wait, no. This is the thing. You see,
this is the other way. Okay.
Yeah, we spend our whole lives thinking that the adults have got all of the answers. When my belief is that sometimes it's our younger self that might have it more. So that's why we turn the question on its head to ask, what would our younger self what advice would our younger self give us today?
Ooh, wow! That now you really make me think. It's okay to take risks.
Lovely. How hard was that to say?
And probably you don't need to fix everything for people.
No, it's just like, yeah, no, and I'm just gonna fix this over here rather than everybody else. But I love that. It's okay to take risks, like coming onto a podcast recording with some crazy loon who pretends to be my chair of governors, which is marvellous. So that's brilliant. We're nearly at the end, you'll be pleased to know. So one last thing. 3 people in your network that you would encourage to both listen to your dulcet tones, but also to invite to come and listen to More Than a Lumpy Jumper, so that we can expand our community.
It would definitely be my niece, who I love dearly, and she is at the beginning of her leadership journey, and she would definitely relate to the humour as well as the lessons that she can learn from this podcast. That's Jade. And then a dear friend of mine, a fellow head teacher. There's 2 or 3 actually that I would definitely encourage to listen, because sometimes we do need to look outside of our immediate learning ecosystem, as I call it.
Yeah.
And then I already share this widely with my leadership team within school, so I think they appreciate it, and very often I do send over some of the episodes that I've listened to them. So yeah,
Brilliant. That's marvellous. You know, we're just going to get our feelers into the education system. I love that. You know, slowly but surely. Just another place for, I was going to say, just another place for me to infiltrate like some kind of insurgent. Marvellous. Mandy, thank you so much for giving your time to come and talk with me. I've loved that. And there have been some light bulb moments and some great ideas for other episodes for us to take a look at. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in school very soon.
Very soon. Thanks a lot, Bobby.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Any resources mentioned in today's episode can be found on Spotify or over on our website, so you can read, listen, watch and explore in your own time whenever you fancy diving a little deeper. We'll be back with you soon for season 6. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe on your platform of choice so you never miss an episode. And if you've been loving what we do here, tap those 5 stars and leave us a review. It's the best way to help others find us too. Keep your ears peeled for our dulcet tones in May.